Good morning and a very warm welcome to Energy Security and Green Infrastructure Week, the UK's biggest green infrastructure conference for the energy economy. My name is Andy Walker and I'm a construction and infrastructure journalist who writes about all aspects of the industry, including sustainability and net zero in the UK and internationally. Many thanks to our sponsors, Cundall, Epicam and Vattenfall Heat UK for their support for this week. We've got three theme days for the week. Today we're going to focus on energy. Tomorrow we'll look at networks. And on Thursday we'll look at the all-important issue of skills and diversity. To get us underway, we have three opening addresses from eminent leaders in the energy and net zero field. First, we're going to hear from Professor Paul S. Monks, Chief Scientific Advisor at the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, and he'll be followed by Jonathan Brearley, Chief Executive of the regulator Ofgem. Both Paul and Jonathan were recorded last week exclusively for this conference. After them, we'll hear from Neil McDermott, Chief Executive of the Low Carbon Contracts Company. So let me introduce our first two speakers. Paul Monks delivers independent and impartial scientific advice to ministers and policymakers across the DESNZ portfolio. Jonathan Brearley heads up Britain's energy regulator Ofgem, who protects the interests of energy consumers and also leads the energy sector to help meet the UK's net zero climate change goals. So really important people to kick us off for this important event. So let's hear from Paul and Jonathan now.
Good morning. I'm Professor Paul Monks, Chief Scientific Advisor for the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, and I'm really sorry I can't join you for this Energy Security and Green Infrastructure Week event. What I want to do this morning, just as a way of context, is talk a little bit about the Clean Energy Superpower mission, which is one of the government's 5 major missions, and in particular, the importance of R&D in delivering that mission. With respect to the Clean Energy Superpower mission, it's clear in many respects that the answers to the challenges of the classical trilemma around security, affordability and sustainability point towards clean energy as part of that. And that is why the government has selected the Clean Energy Superpower mission as one of the most important ones in order to be able to deliver that. The Clean Energy Superpower mission has 2 main pillars to it. Clean power by 2030, which is decarbonisation of our power system by 2030. That's led by Chris Stark, who many of you will know, who used to be the Chief Executive of the Climate Change Committee and is now the Mission Controller as part of that. And we'll be very much concentrating on how to deliver that rapid decarbonisation over towards 2030, also with a view to thinking a little bit around decarbonisation in the 30s as well. The second pillar is accelerating to net zero. Early government priorities in there are re-establishing our credentials in the international stage, thinking about Carbon Budget 7 and working up ideas around warm homes and warm home plans. It's worth thinking, though, that this also will be supported by Great British Energy, led by Jürgen Meyer, based out of Aberdeen, which has access to the National Wealth Fund in order to deliver 2 elements of the mission in the sense of supporting the development and delivery of renewables and other clean energy technologies such as hydrogen and potentially nuclear, as well as an area around drawing community energy and growing community energy as part of that and giving local resilience to the energy system. This does sit in the wider piece also of the economic growth mission in particular, where the industrial strategy as part of that, which has a clean energy pillar. And there's a consultation out at the moment with respect to the industrial strategy, which I do recommend that you reply to as part of that. For me, though, it's absolutely clear that research and development is a key enabler of this mission. We need R&D for the evidence. We need R&D to help us speed up the delivery and outcomes of this mission. And we also need R&D to drive the innovation that we're going to require in order to deliver the clean energy transition, as well as accelerating towards net zero. We're going to have to do it at pace and at scale as part of that. It's worth thinking about where we are in relation to clean energy technologies and R&D. The International Energy Agency has said we've probably got 80% of technologies that we need to deliver by 2030, but we still require over 50% of the technologies to meet the clean decarbonisation global net zero targets by 2050. And really, we don't know where 35% of those carbon dioxide emissions are going to come from, and the technologies have not yet been commercialised in order to deliver that. And I think that's really important as part of this. Undoubtedly, though, this is a public-private partnership as part of this. The UK has attracted over £200 billion worth of low-carbon investment, but we're going to need a further 100 billion by 2030 to unlock the clean energy for Britain, and as well the jobs that will come as part of that. Many of you will be aware that we've had previously a net zero innovation portfolio in government led by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, which has supported and accelerated that. That fund is now fully committed, and I think just as a good example of what you can achieve by that level, we've already estimated that fund has developed over 5,000 jobs and brought in £750 million of private finance. This week, as a really nice example, Highview Power has just secured £300 million from UK, Centrica and other investors to build a first-of-a-kind commercial-scale liquid air energy storage unit. So we're going to be able to store some of that excess renewable energy and release it when it's required to kind of get that supply and demand balance for green energy. Another area well known within that portfolio is low-cost nuclear, in particular the support of the Rolls-Royce SMR projects, which is a great example, I think, of British ingenuity around that, where we matched government funding with private sector funding in order to create substantial economic value, which has been realised recently with some of the deals that have been signed in Europe. I think I want to turn to and finally think about where some of the R&D priorities are going to lie in order to deliver the mission as a whole. There's undoubtedly we're going to need new technologies for low carbon generation, particularly low carbon firm fixed power and the like, in order to deliver the decarbonisation and the continuing decarbonisation of power grid in the 2030s. I think we've also got to think a little bit about how we can drive that rapid development and delivery of the infrastructure, but also thinking about how we can use digital and AI. And I'm sorry to kind of use the AI buzzword, but I do think it does have something to offer in the energy system, and particularly in terms of flex and demand side reduction and some of the things that we're going to need. The cleanest sort of energy is the energy you never have to create. And I think what digital allows us to do and AI allows us to do is think about those sort of elements around that. We're going to have some challenges. I think putting the net into net zero for me is, I think, a big R&D challenge. Moving to the right mix of nature-based solutions and technological removals around that. First steps have been made with the announcement of the 21 billion going into the carbon capture, utilisation and storage scheme in Track 1 in Teesside and the Northwest. That provides a great infrastructure that we can build onto for some of the future particularly engineered removals as part of that. We are going to have to accelerate really across all the sectors. I think industrial decarbonisation really remains a big area that we need a lot of action on that. I wonder about driving out that mass electrification around that, and alongside specialist solutions for that hard to abate, high emitting sectors such as cement, glass and chemicals. And can we have a modular approach to that, so we don't have to do a factory by factory decarbonisation? Is there a modular approach like we're using with nuclear energy that we can drive for that decarbonisation? We've got to drive the heat and buildings decarbonisation, which is still a big part of our emission sectors. We're seeing good innovation in the transport areas, particularly with low carbon technologies and the rise of electric vehicles around that, though we still got things, particularly in the maritime and the aircraft area, I think, and the whole question really of what sustainable fuels look like and the technology and the innovation that we need to do that. Agriculture remains an open sector for that, and an open sector for challenge. So what I've really done there, I think, is kind of sketched out a landscape that is there. I think the Clean Energy Superpower mission provides a real focus for that. I think the question of accelerating to net zero and doing the bits we can do more quickly using that mission de-siloed approach in order to deliver that, alongside alongside that decarbonisation of the power grid and the benefits that will come from having a decarbonised power system in terms of cost and efficiency of the way that we can move to that decarbonised world. We do, though, still need R&D. It's an important part for that. We still need innovation in order to deliver the technologies of tomorrow today and drive our delivery to be as quick as possible. So I really hope that you have a very engaging time at the meeting today. I'm really, again, sorry that I couldn't join you, but I do feel that we face a real challenge over this next period of time. Climate change is telling us we do not have much time and that we do need to act quickly, and this is the decade for action. Thank you very much indeed.
So good morning, everyone. And first of all, I'd just like to say how pleased I am to be speaking at the Energy Security and Green Infrastructure Week. This is such an important topic, not just in terms of the investment that we need, but principally for the customers that we all work for out there. So I'm Jonathan Brearley, I'm the CEO of Ofgem, and we are playing a big role in making sure that this sector delivers for everything that this country needs. So I really start from our statutory duty. I start from, how do we work to make sure that customers get everything they need from the system that we are all creating? Now, in part, of course, that is about customer standards, that's about cost, and that's about making sure that customers get a fair price. But equally, particularly with the addition of our net zero duty, that is about making sure we keep on track with transitioning this system into one that meets the country's net zero goals. Now, all of that has been given a much sharper focus by the new goals that the new government have laid out. So we are working hand in glove with the department to make sure that not only are we targeting 2050, but we're targeting clean power for 2030, which is, of course, incredibly important. Now, the thing that has changed for me over the 20 years I've been working in energy is how all our objectives, which felt like big trade-offs in the 2010s, could we meet our environmental goals without increasing costs, are now much more synergistic. Those things really do support each other. So when we think about getting to net zero, we think about getting to a much more stable system for customers that avoids some of the volatility we've seen in the last few years from international gas prices. So look, it's great to be here because the role that investors are going to play in this transition is massive. We are beginning to formulate those plans for 2030. And of course, as you'd imagine, there is a vast amount of infrastructure that needs to be built, whether that be carbon capture and storage, whether that be potentially new hydrogen, or whether that be all the offshore wind that we need. There's a huge amount that needs to be built out there. And of course, a network that is going to support all of that generation getting to our customers is going to have to grow, and it's going to have to grow fast. Now, within Ofgem, what that means is our regulation needs to change. We need to make sure that we are doing things more quickly, that we're working closely with the companies involved and unlocking the finance so those projects can go ahead. But there is another side to this, and an equally important side. As well as providing the financing, we want to make sure that these projects are delivered on time. And if I had one ask of this sector, and indeed of all the investors that are involved, it's when we unlock funding, for example, to build those big wires that are going up and down the country, that you keep your promises on cost and on timing. Because all of us work for the British consumer, and that's what the British consumer needs. So on the one hand, there's a huge amount of infrastructure being built, but that is not the only part of the system that Ofgem worries about, and that's not the only thing that needs to happen to get us to net zero. On the other side of this, when you look at households and businesses, people are going to need to use their energy a bit differently. We want a system that is much, much more flexible, that allows people who have electric cars, for example, to charge them at a time the system can best manage. And that means, for example, charging cars at night time. And if they can do that, we can bring down the cost dramatically for those customers involved. So alongside all of the regulation to make sure we have the financing, to make sure we get projects delivered on time, we need to think deeply about our retail market and make sure we can get the right offers to customer out there that encourages a customer to use their power at different times, but most importantly, allows them access to the cheapest possible form of energy. So programs like smart meters, like half-hourly settlement, and making sure we have a market that is fit for purpose for those customers is equally important. So look, I love working in the sector. I've worked in the sector for 20 years, and I look forward to many, many more conversations with all of you as to how best we make the transition that we need to make. As I say, we've all got our eyes on net zero by 2050, but we have a massively compelling task now to get to 2030, and I'd love to have bigger conversations with all of you about how we do that. Good luck with the conference, and good luck today. There's a huge amount for all of us to do.
Thank you to Jonathan Brearley there, and also Paul Monks earlier, for those interesting and insightful comments around the issues that we'll be discussing today. And interestingly as well, to hear Paul Monks talk about the government's missions, which we heard a lot about in the pre-general election period, and obviously they're being taken forward into government, as we see from what he said there. I also detected a slight difference of approach as well, coming from Ofgem as well. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out going forward. Anyway, next we have Neil McDermott, who is the Chief Executive of the Low Carbon Contracts Company. In existence for just over a decade, the Low Carbon Contracts Company have made a significant contribution to the growth of renewable low carbon electricity generation in Great Britain. They work with generators, investors, government trade bodies, and delivery partners, and their current and future activity involves supporting the growth of renewable and low carbon generation and investment in technologies, including hydrogen and carbon capture, usage, and storage. So, all issues that we'll be discussing during the course of our conference over the next 3 days. So, Neil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andy, and good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak at the Energy Security and Green Infrastructure Week. So look, since the general election, we've seen fast-paced and significant changes in Britain's energy landscape. The new government has made their ambition clear: a fully decarbonised electricity system by 2030. And I think this commitment places Britain at the forefront of global clean energy innovation and positions us to lead the world in the fight against climate change. So the key actions taken so far include removing restrictions around onshore wind, unlocking enormous potential for one of the most cost-effective renewable technologies. And last week's budget saw announcements and investments in hydrogen to enable 11 first-of-a-kind projects and 3.9 billion allocated to carbon capture, usage and storage, Track 1 projects. So clear and tangible action is being taken, and there's a lot more that we can do. At Low Carbon Contracts Company, we're proud to be at the heart of this national effort. 10 years ago, when I joined, Low Carbon Contracts Company consisted of a few people in a small office, with a huge task ahead of us in delivering electricity market reform, as it was known then, the new CFD and capacity market schemes. And I sit here today, I'm very proud to be the CEO of a company that is managing well over 30 gigawatts of contracts for difference, advising government on policy development and looking to implement many new government schemes to deliver our 2030 and net zero goals. At LCCC, we're the counterparty to the contracts for difference, managing contracts over their 15-year term. But we also provide the bridge between government and industry. And by industry, I mean developers, generators, trade bodies, the investment community, supply chains, and other delivery bodies. We relish that opportunity of working with you to solve the complex challenges that we all face. And we're able to do this through our policy expertise, top-tier analytic skills, rich data insights, and hands-on industry experience, and finally, our expert contract management. And in this summer's allocation round 6, we had 9.6 gigawatts of capacity awarded across 130 new contracts for difference. And that was the highest number since the scheme's inception. Amongst those projects are 4.9 gigawatts of offshore wind, including the world's largest floating offshore wind project. And the success of AR6 is a testament to the CFD's power to attract investment and deliver on the government's renewable energy ambitions. And I'd argue that CFDs have become a key element of our energy transition. It's been a stable policy mechanism that's been in place for 10 years. It's well understood by investors and often referred to as the gold standard of support contracts. It not only reduces risk for investors, but ensures that new technologies can be built as we look to deliver net zero. And the success of the CFD in renewable electricity has enabled us to look at how it can be used in other areas of decarbonisation. So this has meant that LCCC has transitioned from a focus purely on electrons to one that's now also focused on molecules. So what do I mean by this? Well, over the last few years, we've been working with DESNZ and investors to develop new decarbonisation schemes, developing the overarching policy, business models, and contract design. As a result, we've been designated as the counterparty for hydrogen contracts, the certification body for low carbon hydrogen standard, the levy administrator for the gas shipper levy, and more recently, the revenue support agreement counterparty for CO2 transport and storage. So as we sit here now, I'm proud to be leading the world's first clean hydrogen-backed revenue support scheme through the hydrogen business model and hydrogen allocation round one. The scheme will be critical to decarbonising hard-to-abate sectors such as industry and heavy transport. LCCC will also be the counterparty to the new dispatchable power agreement, supporting early investment in carbon capture usage and storage projects across Great Britain. We're perfectly placed to leverage all our expertise developed over the last 10 years to deliver these new schemes. Other schemes evolving at a rapid pace include sustainable aviation fuels, greenhouse gas removals, and hydrogen transport, just to name a few. By supporting these nascent technologies, we're helping to decarbonise industries that cannot easily electrify. And in doing so, we're protecting livelihoods and the environment. In addition to our work on CFDs and new clean energy schemes, it's important to highlight our role in maintaining energy security through our position as a settlement agent for the capacity market. The capacity market ensures that we have enough electricity to meet demand, particularly during peak times, at least cost to consumers. With DESNZ, NESO, and Ofgem, we support a stable and secure energy system, complementing our decarbonisation efforts while maintaining energy security. As we sit here now, LCCC currently manages over 50 gigawatts of capacity across 490 providers, over 1,000 agreements, and a staggering 161,000 metres, all to ensure that between us we can provide electricity when it's needed to consumers. And whilst we're very proud of what we've achieved over the last 10 years, we need to look to the future so that contracts for difference remain the cornerstone of the UK's energy and decarbonisation strategy. I've said many times that the CFD cannot stand still. It needs to remain relevant to the kinds of projects investors want to bring forward and to the policy priorities of government. There's much debate about potential CFD reforms, particularly the way in which CFDs are awarded. While improvements and innovations are welcome, it is crucial that any changes maintain the core principles that we've made CFDs so successful to date: investor confidence and delivering energy at the lowest possible cost to consumers. And to date, CFDs have attracted over 61 billion in private sector investment. Backed by LCCC's levy-raising powers, CFDs provide 15 years of CPI-indexed price stability with low counterparty risk. That stability is why investors continue to view CFDs as a trusted, low-risk mechanism for energy investment. Any reforms must be carefully considered to maintain this confidence. At LCCC, we're fully engaged in discussions around CFD reforms, bringing our on-the-ground experience and strategic insights to ensure that the scheme remains fit for purpose as we move to the next phase of decarbonisation. I understand and respect that many organisations will have views and solutions to get us to Clean Power 2030. My ask of all of you is to engage with us. We want to work with you, share our views, hear your views, so that we can achieve clean power together. I'm sure we're all eagerly awaiting the new energy system operators' roadmap for achieving the 2030 target. And whilst we do, one thing is becoming increasingly clear: the CFD will play a significant role. While AR6 was a success, next year's allocation round 7 will be crucial to meeting the 2030 target. And to achieve this, my ask of everyone in the industry is to keep collaborating. Whether you're working in government, regulation, development, the investment community, or supply chains, LCCC is committed to ensuring that the CFD scheme continues to play its part in driving the energy transition, working alongside all of you to ensure that projects are developed and commissioned in a timely manner. So in conclusion, it's worth reminding ourselves how far we've come. Renewable energy now accounts for around 50% of the UK's electricity mix, and that's a dramatic increase from a decade ago. The CFD scheme has been a quiet but effective enabler behind this transformation, with nearly 34 gigawatts of contracted capacity across 370 CFD contracts that support technologies such as offshore and onshore wind, solar, geothermal, and other technologies. Our ethos here is to support developers to successfully deploy small and large-scale low-carbon projects that are transforming Britain's energy system. And finally, I'm confident that with the right policies, strong partnerships, and bold ambition, we can deliver clean power by 2030. That is why days like this are so exciting. And I see a wide range of individuals in the renewable industry gathering together in this conference to listen, collaborate, and engage in a joint effort to decarbonise Britain. I look forward to the discussions being held today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Neil, for those comments and for that optimism as well about the future, and also to preview some of the announcements yet to come as a result of the government's plans in this area. And I think the important point that you made around collaboration is absolutely critical. And I know there's going to be a lot of collaboration on display over the next 3 days in our panel discussions that are coming up. So thanks very much indeed, for that. And I'd encourage everybody in the room to, if they're not familiar with the work of the Low Carbon Contracts Company, to look them up online, because there's some really interesting stuff on their website about all the good things that they actually do. So I'm pleased to say that we are on time. We do have a short break coming up now before we start our first panel session, which is going to focus on power. There's no need for our audience to leave the room. Just stay logged on. The link is the same for all of our sessions during today, but we will be restarting at 9:30. So do feel free to go and get yourself a cup of coffee, tea, or whatever your beverage of choice is. For me, it'll be water, to make sure that my sore throat doesn't get any worse. So thanks again to Neil, to Professor Paul Monks, and to Jonathan Brearley for their comments earlier, and we'll see you all again at 9:30 a.m. sharp. See you in a bit.
Thank you.